Time for us to put on Hollywood, California's finest dresses and, together, truly become the pretty woman on this episode of That Song from That Movie. Clamp. Thank you for joining That Song from That Movie, the journey through the very best and worst of movie songs. I am your steaming divot host, Dietrich, and as always, we welcome the man who doesn't usually rent rooms by the hour, Alex.
The operative word there being usually.
Usually.
Yeah.
It's in italics.
Yeah. Or brackets, I respect them.
And also joining us is the guy who wants his money now and he wants to get out of here, Ben.
Usually.
Usually.
Allegedly. I'm going to end everything I say just because we don't often fact check on this podcast with allegedly.
Often fact check.
We don't often allegedly check our facts. Allegedly.
Yeah. We arguably check them.
Yeah.
Usually.
Usually.
Think about checking.
How vague can we be?
I don't know. Quite.
Usually.
I would like to know in the past fortnight, what have you been watching?
Cha. I've been watching the TV show House of Dragon, which is
Is it any
Game of
good?
Thrones, right?
I've not started it yet.
Or House of the Dragon for our non-Yorkshire listeners.
House of Dragon. It's House of Dragon. Have you watched Game of Thrones, presumably, Ben? Yeah.
Yes, and it was so bad. It ended so poorly that I completely erased it all from my brain.
Yeah, well, other than the fact that it's obviously based on characters from the show, it is completely different. It's a lot better paced, for one thing, and it's a lot more focused in on a certain number of characters. So rather than it feeling very sprawling and very confusing, and you're like, do I know who this character is? It's a lot easier to kind of just like watch, just sit down and watch it. And I would really recommend it. It's good.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, so I would recommend anyone who has watched Game of Thrones to watch it. I'm not sure I'd recommend someone who has not.
Hi.
Yeah, so that, and I also rewatched the Baz Luhrmann Great Gatsby film. Don't ask me why, I just did.
Yeah, my wife loves that film, and every time I watch it, I just still don't get it. I think the soundtrack's banging.
Yeah, maybe we'll cover it one day, so I won't go into too much detail, but...
I actually own it on Blu-ray and have never watched it.
You never watched it? I personally think it's kind of a fun film, but it is very far removed from much of the points of the novel.
There's just so much CGI and so much pointless CGI.
Yeah, it's an interesting watch. So, how about you, Bean?
I think I've only watched one film this past week. I watched After Yang. Have you heard of that?
No.
Nope. Not
it's like, Colin Farrell seems to have recently been doing... Allegedly, Colin Farrell. He's just, over the past sort of like 6 or 7 years, he's just been doing really weird kind of indie films. I think it's an A24 film about a family who adopt a Chinese daughter, and in order to help the daughter understand her heritage, they have a robot who basically acts like an older sibling, but the robot then malfunctions, and it's like some weird, very slow-burning indie drama. It was kind of good, but a bit weird. There's an incredible dance scene, which I would recommend you watch.
Colin Farrell.
Because Colin Farrell, yeah, but like dancing like dancing stage megamix dancing.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, so, that happens about 5 minutes into the film, so, if you have a short attention span, you can end it there.
Sounds good.
What about you, D?
I brought it up on the podcast before, like last year, and I got a derision from Alex. I wondered whether or not he had watched the new series of Brassic this year.
Nope. I've not watched any of the Brassic.
I was hoping that after my recommendation last year and going, no, it's actually really good, you should watch it, that you actually went and watched it.
Well,
so it's a disappointment to hear, because the new series is just as good as always. Yeah. It's the best British television show at the moment. And I based that on the fact I watched one.
To be fair, you watch a lot more British TV than me.
What, one show?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think Gogglebox counts, Ben.
I mean, I'm still watching reruns of Peep Show.
Well, I recommend it again.
Where can the good listeners of That Song for That Movie find Brassic?
Other than in your heart, it would be on somewhere that has the Sky Store.
Sponsor us.
You've lost me.
Yeah, I don't know. Now TV, is that's Sky?
That is Sky.
Related.
You'll be able to find
You'll find out if me and Alex have watched it on the next season of Brassic.
Okay, cool. I look forward to next November's episode where I ask if you've watched season 5 of Brassic.
Cha.
So this week, we are not being paid $3,000, but we know who is the titular Pretty Woman in the movie Pretty Woman, and also Roy Orbison for the use of his song Oh Pretty Woman. So to find out what was happening in the world when the movie came out...
Time for some history.
Lovely stuff. Yes, Pretty Woman was released in June 1990 in the United Kingdom, and as is now this tradition that I make, and I think doing things twice accounts for a tradition.
Yep.
I've skipped news. I'm looking at what films came out, and to be fair, a great film came out in June 1990. No, not Pretty Woman. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film came out, which has a song that we will one day cover by Partners in Crime.
Ninja Rap.
Yeah, which is absolutely fantastic. But there was a lot of good films. Like last week I was saying, it was terrible. June 1990 had Total Recall. Great film.
Nice.
Gremlins 2. Better than Gremlins 1.
I don't know if that's true, but it's a good film.
Frankenhooker.
One of your favourites?
Frankenhooker. It's a grail film that critics like it. It's not just weird. I promise you, every film needs to has that little expletive. But I like to find those hidden gems. And I've come across a film that I've never heard of before called Shredder Orpheus. Now, this is not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles association. What do you think Shredder Orpheus is about?
It's Orpheus, not Orifice.
O-R-P-H-E-U-S.
Orpheus.
Something Shakespeare related?
Is it?
No.
Shredder Orpheus. I can't even think what the word Orpheus is a reference to, other than Morpheus from The Matrix, which obviously came 10 years or so later than this.
If you open up your WhatsApp, guys, I've just linked you the trailer of Shredder Orpheus. It is 1 minute long, and I want you to at least watch like 20 seconds of it, because it explains it almost instantly.
There's a lot of skateboarding going on.
And now, they're shredding their way to hell.
Oh my god, is that a Nazi?
With Shredder Orpheus.
Oh, okay.
Hercules is kidnapped by the Euthanasia Network. Orpheus enters a secret passage to the deadly underworld, armed only with a futuristic guitar and a skateboard from hell. Orpheus...
Skateboard from hell?
So what's your trick? Don't ever do that.
Don't ever
He's got a
do
rock
that.
and roll nightmare that will tune you in, count you down, and rip your soul apart.
Yep.
It's not cool. It's not red. It's the pits.
The editing is shocking.
The editing of this trailer is terrible.
So, skateboarder Orpheus and friends go to hell to stop television signals that are brainwashing America, armed only with his futuristic guitar, which looks like it's just a square piece of card with 3 strings over it.
Was that supposed to be a guitar?
Oh, and yeah, that's for the guitar. That falls on the ground, yeah. Also a skateboard from hell.
Well, yeah, of course.
It seems like the executives of early 1990s were like, what do kids love? They love skateboards. They love rock and roll. They like hell.
And then the absolute fools, put it up against the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film.
I know.
It was doomed to obscurity.
It was, unfortunately.
They even tried to match it with the Shredder line.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, unfortunately, we're not here to talk about Shredder Orpheus.
I mean, that is very unfortunate.
I will watch it one day, and I will find out if there is a song. And there has to be if it has.
He's literally playing guitar for half of the trailer, so there must be.
No, today we are talking about Pretty Woman. So, for those unaware, Pretty Woman is an American comedy by Gary Marshall, starring Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. So the film follows Hollywood prostitute Vivian Ward, who is hired by wealthy businessman Edward Leese to escort him on several functions over a week in which their relationship blossoms. Now, I think we've all seen this one, yeah?
Mhm.
Yep.
I think you've watched this fairly recently for the first time, is that right?
Yep, another movie I've watched for the first
Can
time.
you tell us, oh yes, can you please tell us about your thoughts of a 1990s film in 2022?
Yes, I watched it for the first time in preparation for this, but I think it's unfair to say that I went in with like no idea what the film was going to be like, because through like parodies and pop culture and that kind of stuff, I already sort of knew what it was about, and I sort of knew certain scenes it was going to happen in the movie as well.
Such as the ring case closing.
Yeah, exactly. What I wasn't expecting, however, and I suppose this is a knock on the film, the setting up of the premise of the movie takes 50 minutes, something like that. It's really like dragged out. If you were to give a plot summary, that's half the film. It feels like it could be 10-15 minutes tops. A rich banker hires a sex worker for a week. That's one scene.
Sounds like a good film.
But that's just the first half. And I would say it's about halfway through that the song appears, right?
Yeah, properly for the first time.
Yeah, like the actual sort of, the scene we'll go on to speak about later. And annoyingly, the second half of the movie, I really enjoyed. And by the end of it, I really enjoyed the film overall. Yeah, I left it thinking, do you know what, that's really good. I get why everyone likes that.
So you liked it once she became, oh, look, it's a pretty woman. Because Julia Roberts was not a pretty woman beforehand.
No, it was the emotionless banker. When he finally started to show emotion, I could finally relate to somebody on screen.
That was just Richard Gere trying to act throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. But on the whole, I would say I enjoyed the movie, though I wish that they'd have spent that first 50 minutes maybe having more scenes of like really establishing why Vivian and Edward are falling for each other outside of just this woman is being paid to be near him.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of a crux of it, to be honest.
Well, exactly. And the fact that we can all say it in like an 8-word sentence and it takes 50 minutes in the film.
Yeah. I think it's because they're trying to make it seem like they have, yes, a general connection, which they go on to have, but there's no denying that a part of the connection has to be either the allure of the sexuality of Vivian or the fact that this guy is absolutely loaded and is buying her all these things, all these huge grand gestures. You cannot be fake enough to assume that has nothing to do with this relationship.
Yeah, I just feel like it gets a bit cramped. Like, there's a bit where they have sort of an argument, and that argument happens in one scene, and by the next scene, they're friends again, and it never happened. Where it feels like there should have been more time to breathe for some of the stuff in the second half. But generally, I enjoyed the ride on the second half.
Yep. Al?
I think I do quite like this film. It's a very satisfying movie in that it's very kind of Hollywood glossy. It's a rom-com. The two main characters or actors are both very good in the film, and you enjoy them both on screen and separately and together. So I like it in that sense, in that in all films from kind of the late 80s to sort of mid 90s, it just feels like a film. I don't know if that's descriptive enough.
All right, Harry Styles.
Yeah. You know what I'm getting at there. But yeah,
modern day this would go straight to Netflix, wouldn't it?
Well, not if it had Julia Roberts and Richard Gere in it, maybe not. But yeah,
well, maybe if it did nowadays.
Yeah, maybe. I think kind of what I find odd about this film is that there is a much darker film that was made on a different timeline about this same exact subject matter.
Yeah,
and this kind of film, I don't think does get, like you said, go straight to Netflix. I almost don't think this film gets made anymore, because there's no way they could have this storyline and it be all kind of essentially upbeat and story fairy tale romance. It just wouldn't work. It'd have to be something that is a lot more gritty and less cynical and a bit more twisted. And I think because if it gets made today, it is a drama. And she has less agency, she has less control over the kind of chaos that led to her sex work, because she's very much of the these are my rules about being a prostitute. She's shown as someone who has a lot of, I don't know, just a lot of control over everything that she does.
Yeah.
Which she couldn't have in a film that's made now, and where he's as well, sort of, he's not looking for the sex at the beginning, is he? He's looking for directions. So there's this element at play in the film where they're both sort of innocent, and I just think it's, you watch it today and you're I don't really buy it other than that it's context of as a Hollywood rom-com. So I like it, but I feel like it is a film of it very much of its time.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a bad thing, because like we can all enjoy like escapism, and it is a rom-com, you know, it is supposed to be like that. But it's just, I think because of the subject matter it's dealing with, it feels like, yeah, you would never see something like this again.
I'd completely accept that.
Yeah, it almost feels like if you made it today, because we live in a slightly more sex-positive world, whilst bankers are seen as like demons sucking money off people, the roles would be sort of reversed.
Yeah, potentially.
It's not like a Gordon Gekko, like
Maybe.
admirable, I want to be him growing up now. Bankers are like, oh, we don't want to talk about them. Like the Big Short was entire film just being about bankers or wankers.
Bankers or wankers, yep.
Yeah, I think definitely this film nowadays is in grayscale. And someone probably dies at the end.
It'd probably be, and it would involve OnlyFans.
I think as well, like when I was watching it, because I've not actually seen that many films with Richard Gere, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Trip. I think maybe we've discussed it before, but there's a part on there where I think it's Steve Coogan's talking about Richard Gere in films and how he just does the same thing in every scene, where he kind of like looks off into the distance as if he's like remembering something from his past and like kind of chuckles to himself. And then comes back to the scene, and it's just like he's watching this, thinking he's just.
I can literally picture that exact moment.
He's just doing it the entire film.
Have you seen Primal Fear?
No.
One of Edward Norton's first films. A really good film. Really good film. It's like a very sort of typical 90s courtroom drama. Doesn't involve clapping, though, unfortunately. It's not the centre of a woman.
No one stands up and claps at the end. Yeah. It's not the centre of a woman. Take a flamethrower to that place.
J.F. Lawton, who wrote the screenplay for this, also did the screenplay for Under Siege and Under Siege 2. So, the swings and roundabouts.
So if there was a sequel to this, it'd just be the same film, but on a boat.
I think they attempted to do a sequel for this. I'm getting used to just reading articles, and then it's just, and a sequel was attempted. We think of sequel problems being a modern thing. They've been trying for a long time. I think it's just a lot easier nowadays.
Isn't this film just on a boat, Titanic? Think about it.
It's hurting my head.
Jack's not rich, though, is he?
No, but
it's the other way around, is what I'm saying. Rose is Richard Gere.
Yeah. I don't remember the shopping scene. She's
there was that scene where he's wearing a tux.
I suppose.
Just if you think about it in more detail, it'll come to you.
Pretty Woman would be an A-star film if it had Billy Zane in it.
I mean, you could literally say that about any film.
Oh, so this was the third highest grossing film of the 1990s. This was the third highest grossing movie of 1990 behind Shredder Orpheus. Only joking. It was behind Ghost and Home Alone 1.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's the highest ever grossing rom-com, according to Box Office Mojo. Now, I guess that depends on how you define a rom-com, but this was at the steady incline of Julia Roberts. Like, this is still early in her ascension. Like, we've still got Notting Hill to come, which is basically just imagine meeting Julia Roberts. Is basically what Notting Hill is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is why it works. She has an allure of a stardom. I think was it quite well known that she insured her smile for like $1 million or something. It was something weird of the time. She obviously peaks with an Oscar win in Erin Brockovich, which is a great film. So she goes on to have pretty good, probably dominates the 90s really for stardom, especially as an actress. She was nominated for an Academy Award for this film, which might surprise you because rom-coms often don't get that.
That is surprising.
Lost out to Kathy Bates.
Misery.
Bates. Yes.
I mean, that is well deserved.
Yeah.
Very similar to this film, really, when you think about it.
It is the same.
I need to stop thinking of this as if you're saying poignant points. It's hurting my head just looking off into the distance. So yeah, one thing I always think is problematic, and whether this is of the time, and I think we've mentioned it before, there's 18 years difference between Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. Mm-hmm. It's a very common thing of Hollywood, like when we talk about Hollywood films, whether it's gives us a warm feeling or not, it is typical of just a very old man and a very young woman. So I think he was 40 and she's 22 at the time of this. I don't often think of it when I'm watching it. It isn't Grace Kelly and Cary Grant in what's it? Is it To Catch a Thief?
Yes, the one with where they wear the cat with the cat burglars and stuff.
Yep, which is
or Keira Knightley in Love Actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, also creepy.
There's plenty of examples out there. I think it's when you look at Richard Gere though, he doesn't look that old, but he's
No. So the film was originally going to be called $3,000, which is a terrible name for a film. because that's the amount of money Vivian and Edward finally agree upon for her week of service. And similar to what we were saying, there was going to be a darker film originally in the script. Like, J.F. Lawton went and interviewed a lot of sex workers around Hollywood to kind of understand, the character and the role and the life that they live, and the corporate raiding, which, was Richard Gere's doing at the time, and did a lot of research into that. So I think he was trying for a really serious film, but it's Disney. Like, this is a Disney film. It's not going to.
Yeah.
I'd say it was actually made by Disney at the time as well.
Yeah, I think at least the funding is Disney. Yes, I don't know what kind of letterhead it has at the start of the film.
Is it Touchstone?
It might. Touchstone would make sense. But yeah, the reason that they changed the film name from $3,000 was because they acquired the rights. Disney acquired the rights to the song "Oh Pretty Woman" by Roy Orbison.
When you say acquired the rights, do you mean like unrelated to this film? They just happened to have purchased the rights, and it was like, oh.
I don't know, because there's nothing that I see of the director saying, "Oh, I want this song," or the writer saying, "I want this song." Disney must have been in that process, a bit like what a lot of people were doing at the time. You always heard about Michael Jackson doing it. People just buying people's works, I guess, as they've died or their family have aged out, or the rights have
been
relinquished.
That's what I was going to ask. When did Roy Orbison die? Because he died in there.
He died quite young.
Was it around this time? Is that why the song?
We'll go into that a little bit.
Good.
Before we fully go into the song, can I just give a shout out to my boy Barney?
Is that the guy who works in the guy from Princess Diaries?
Hotel manager.
He's the taxi driver from Princess Diaries.
Is it?
Well, because it's directed by the same bloke.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, he's the character with the heart of gold in this movie.
Yeah.
He's the heart and soul of the movie, and he sort of quietly goes on a character redemption arc over the course of the movie in the background. And when they have their sort of when Vivian and Barney have their sort of final farewell, it's probably the most heartfelt scene of the entire movie. It might even be the reason why I enjoyed the second half of the movie so much, because I'm like, my boy Barney is doing great work.
Yeah, he's one of those characters that he is telling his own narrative with just like a smile and a gaze. Exactly.
Just a wry smile about what something she says. You already know everything you need to know about Barney.
I've often thought like it's one of those things where the director shine, line, and he's like, what? He was just dazing off into the distance, but it's just so damn attractive. They keep it in. And he basically plays the exact same role in Princess Diaries, which is a fantastic film.
No arguments here.
So before we go on to talk about A Pretty Woman, I just want to give a mention to several iconic songs that are in this film. None of them really have a huge affinity with the film, so we won't go into detail, but there are some absolute bangers of songs. There's The King of Wishful Thinking, which is an absolutely incredible song. Show Me Your Soul by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is a great song. And there's a huge throwback for the operatic song La Traviata, which Richard Gere plays parts of on the piano himself. So he's actually playing the piano, which is thrown into doubt. Every time I watch a film and I see someone at a piano, I always assume, they're not playing that. Now I don't know. And I never will know. And I just have to learn to accept that. There is one song that does have quite a big mention, which is Roxette's It Must Have Been Love. We fans of this song?
I know the song. I wouldn't have said I was a fan of it. That song presumably is contemporary with this film, is it? Was this?
I didn't think it was, and it doesn't have loads of mentions, but my wife recognised the relationship between this song and the film, and it has quite an important moment. So in the it's like the goodbye scene of the film, I guess it plays over it while Julia Roberts' Vivian gets in the car to go away. But do you remember that?
It's been a very long time since I've seen this film, so no.
Do you remember that watching it fairly recently?
No.
Exactly. Same.
I remember there was music playing, but for the life of me, I wouldn't have remembered what it was. I think I might have assumed in my head it was just like a musical interlude from Oh Pretty Woman.
No, yeah, it's, like I say, but you know the song, don't you? I think it's on a lot of my Power Ballad playlist, for which I have many.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of song that up until you said it was in this film, that was like, that song must be the main song from a film. Because it just sounds like it is from an 80s film.
It probably is from another film, but I mean, it's a pretty popular breakup song. This song is in a lot of top breakup lists of all time. You can imagine the heavy mascara dripping down from the vastly airy, windswept look of a lot of singers from the late 80s, early 90s. The song we are talking about today is Oh, Pretty Woman. The O isn't always referenced in some of the versions, but the original version is Oh, Pretty Woman. And it's a song recorded by legendary American singer-songwriter, the Big O, the Caruso of rock, Roy Orbison. The Caruso of rock is a very good nickname.
That is a great name.
Yeah, that's one of the better ones.
Well, then we are claiming the Caruso podcast.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we can be. Well, last week with the Calypso podcast.
Queen of Country podcast.
Yeah. So the song was originally released in 1964, spent 3 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 100, and was Roy Orbison's second number 1 of the US, third in the UK, and his very last. So what do we think of this song before we go into its use in the film?
Well, this may come as a surprise to you, but I am a very large Roy Orbison fan.
Nice.
So I enjoy the song a lot. I feel like this song was very prominent in my childhood. I don't know whether it was very prominent in both of yours, but I felt like it was around an awful lot. And it was just kind of that song that you just knew. I don't know why. It's got a very, very catchy kind of lead guitar riff. I think we can all agree on that.
Oh, yeah.
And just as a song on its own, I just enjoy it a lot. As I enjoy Roy Orbison. It was one of the very first compilation albums I had when I got a car, was the Roy Orbison's Greatest Hits album.
I did not know that, Alex. That is good to know. Because I thought I knew a lot more about this guy, and then listening to his greatest hits over the weekend, I was like, I don't think I know a lot about you.
Only the Lonely? In Dreams, man.
I know, yes, I know. I think it was maybe four or five songs I could name. And then I was done. Is his notoriety more specific to the US then?
Well, you just said then that he had more UK number ones than in the US. Didn't you?
Yeah, true. But I guess of the time, like when I think of like longevity, you think of those kind of like I guess acts of the time of the 50s and the 60s that have kind of continued into the modern day.
Yeah,
is his name one of them?
I think with him, what happened was he was very successful early on. So like late 50s, into the 60s, and then he kind of essentially disappeared off the radar for a long time. Obviously, he was in the travelling. Is it Wilburys? Is your favourite travelling Wilbury? Jeff Lynne. So he was in them. I think there was a resurgence because there was a lot of in the 80s. Obviously, like with films like I want to say Back to the Future. I guess Back to the Future is an example, but there was a lot of kind of like 50s, 60s nostalgia around that time.
The rockabilly sort of style.
Yeah, so I think he came back into favour then. So I don't think it's a surprise that even though this film is from 1990, it's a very 80s movie, isn't it? And when we go on to talk about its use and stuff, I might touch on one of my favourite films, Blue Velvet, because his song in Dreams is very prominent in that film, which is obviously in 80s movies as well. So I think he did kind of come back into the kind of cultural framework in the 80s. So that might make sense as to why it's kind of featured here.
Makes a lot of sense.
Maybe. I'm just guessing, but I think that...
I know, I allegedly, I think that was pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, allegedly bowed down to Alex's knowledge.
Yeah. Figurative. Gondy.
Am I talking about the scene or my knowledge of Roy Orbison? Because I'm telling you right now, Ben, I don't have much of a knowledge of Roy Orbison. Everything I know about him is either from this movie or like via the osmosis of listening to smooth radio constantly.
Why don't you talk about the song and then go into its use if you want?
Okay, well, I like the song, and via having a television and a radio, I've heard this song many, many times before I'd ever seen the movie. I did actually, stupidly, start the movie without knowing what the song was going to be, and it wasn't until I heard the riff I went, of course it's this song.
You do not realise.
What kind of idiot am I that I put on a movie called Pretty Woman and didn't think that this song would be the song from that film?
I didn't realise.
Anyway, I thought the Oh Pretty Woman montage was probably the best part of the entire movie for me. As I said earlier, the movie was, I guess it was quite dry to that point, maybe by design. But the montage of Vivian trying on all the different outfits, turning heads in the street, and I think what makes it probably the best montage bit is when she goes back into the posh clothes store that had rejected her earlier in the film.
Mistake. And
gets one over on the snooty douchebag.
Yep, lots of clicking fingers in the cinemas, I imagine.
Yeah, lots of head nods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The introduction of like the riff and then the montage itself, it was like the spark of life of them in the movie. Just sort of like a kick up the backside. Which probably put me in such a good mindset. Maybe it wasn't my boy Barney that kept me going during the second half. Maybe it was just the life that I'd got from this scene that made me like it. Maybe this is the montage that gives the movie enough credibility with the audience to walk away thinking, yeah, I really enjoyed Pretty Woman.
Yeah. I like I said, I do like the film, but I do think this is where it struts. Like, the song is such a strut song. It almost picks up the pace, like, with the beat, and it does. I do think it rides a lot smoother from this point on.
It reminds me, the montage, its placement in the movie, and it's sort of, again, that injection of life into the film. It reminds me of Groundhog Day, when you get the montage of Bill Murray repeating multiple days over and over. Have you ever gone back to watch that film recently?
Groundhog Day, maybe in the last sort of 3 or 4 years.
It's really long, and it's very, very grey.
Yep.
And I feel like people go, oh, I love Groundhog Day, and just think about that montage.
I don't love
And I feel like that might be happening with me with Pretty Woman.
That's fair. Well, you know what? You know where to start it the next time you watch it.
Yeah, I can just read the premise and then go straight to the montage and watch the rest of the film.
Yep, definitely. It was considered the 4th best song of 1964. Alex, any guesses what was ahead of it?
3 songs by the Beatles.
Wrong, you idiot. It was 2 songs by the Beatles. And 1 by Louis Armstrong. Any guesses which one?
What a Wonderful World. Oh.
No, I'm not the Louis Armstrong.
The Beatles one, to me.
Yeah.
1964. Ooh,
Come on, Alex.
Help.
Come on, Alex. Nope. Earlier.
Is it earlier than that?
He's asking for help. Ben, come on.
Want to Hold Your Hand?
Yep, number 1. Well done.
I don't know, 8 days a week, is that?
She Loves You.
Oh, She Loves You. Yeah.
And then Hello Dolly by Louis Armstrong. Alex, you in your musings earlier, you were also right. Roy Orbison died aged only 52 of a heart attack in 1988. So likelihood was, maybe the rights to a lot of his songs came up for sale, went to auction probably, as they usually do, and Disney bought it. Seems to make sense.
It does seem to make sense.
Yeah. So the song Pretty Woman, do we know who is the Pretty Woman?
His wife?
It was his wife, yes, wife. His wife, Claudette. Apparently it was inspired by his wife saying she was going out, and Orbison asked if she had enough cash, and apparently his co-writer, Bill Dees, said a pretty woman never needs any money. Which I think is a bit weird to say, not just about someone's wife, but just in general.
Wow.
The LP is different to, I think, the original single, because the lines "Come with me, baby" was changed to "Come to me, baby," as if the former was considered more risque. Does that work?
So "Come with me" was considered
"Come with me,
more
baby"
risky.
Was considered more risky than "Come to me, baby."
Risky or risque?
Risque.
Risky.
It's very 1960s risque.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because, like, come have an orgasm with me, or follow me to the bedroom is the 2 options there, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of accept that. But yeah, it doesn't... after this, his career more or less stagnated. In general, though, I was reading quite a lot about Roy Orbison and listening to a few podcasts. That man had bad luck.
Yes, a very dark life.
His life was incredibly dark. I don't know if you're ready, but his wife, Claudette, who this song is about, I guess his song to her, she died 2 years after it was released. She was hit by a car. Apparently she was an inspiration for a lot of his songs. Then 2 years after that, in 1968, while he was on tour, he heard news that in his home in Tennessee, his house had burned down and his 2 eldest sons had died inside.
Wow.
I know, how awful is that? So this kind of spring, his career starts to go downhill, stagnate. His wife dies in tragic circumstance. His 2 eldest sons die in tragic circumstance. And he himself, he only lived until he was 52. It's so sad. In a way, it's kind of nice that his song to his wife is the thing that outlives him. Because I think this song is a lot bigger than him. I don't know if you would disagree, Alex, as someone who's a fan. And I know he is someone who is seen in quite high regard in, I guess, critical circles and those that, big in rock and roll and origins of music of the 50s and 60s. But I think this song's bigger than him.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think it's only later on that he was seen in such a critically positive way. I think at the time, he was kind of very mainstream.
Yeah, yes.
There's a good interview, because I mentioned Blue Velvet already, but there's a good interview with David Lynch as to why he uses Roy Orbison songs in his films, because I think it's not just Blue Velvet. I think he uses a couple of others in different situations, but it's kind of like this idea of him being like, when David Lynch was growing up, he was kind of like the person you just heard all the time on the radio, because it was essentially the music your parents listened to.
Yes, he was Mr. Clean Cut as opposed to like the Elvis and the Johnny Cash.
Exactly that, yeah. But whereas I think when you listen in more detail to it, kind of, there is a sadness to the songs, and I think like maybe not so much this one, but certainly if you do think about In Dreams, which is a song to his wife, who is at that point, I think, dead. So I think that song is about him kind of reaching out in his dreams to his wife who is lost. I think kind of like the timbre to his voice has got there is a sadness to it, and even in this song I think it's there. That gives it a bit more depth, and it kind of just hints at something underneath, which I think is why David Lynch used it so well, because, his films are often about like normal suburban life and the stuff, the underbelly that you don't quite see. And I think maybe that's when I was watching this, I was thinking that this song works better if the film is slightly grittier. I do really like the scene, and I think everything that Dee said about it is right. Like, I think it is probably the highlight of the film. But I think it just worked better in a film that has a slightly more grit to it, was my thought. But, to go back to your original point, Ben, I think the song probably is bigger than him, because it's just I think it's just so well known, and maybe people don't necessarily know it's by him, although I think most people would if they don't know anything else by him. But yeah, it's definitely taken on a life of its own, I would say.
Yes, and it's taken on such a life that it has inspired 2 covers, for which I would like to discuss. One, surprisingly to my 2 colleagues here, actually has more relevance than you'd think. So, according to places on the internet, now I can't find a source that I trust, but apparently those involved in the film originally didn't want the Roy Orbison version. They wanted the Van Halen version.
No. Well, I mean...
Now, the Van Halen version is I don't think very good, but the music video, my word, that's a music video. Did you watch the music video, guys?
Yeah, I watched as much as I could take.
Yeah,
that's a good way of wording it, Alex. I tapped out after 20 seconds.
Yes, it was actually banned from MTV at the time, apparently.
It was banned.
MTV refused to show it.
Yeah, it's the difference between being banned and being refused.
This was at a time when MTV played a lot. But that's not the song that actually has relevance. Now, there was a cover in 1989. They could have used it in this film. By rap group Two Live Crew. So they recorded a parody of the Roy Orbison song, using the alternate title Pretty Woman, so without the O, for their album As Clean As They Wanna Be. Now, they sample the distinctive bass line, they replace some of the lyrics about a hairy woman and a bald-headed friend. It's a parody song. It's a parody song. You look at the album cover, it's a parody.
I love that the album cover says something like, there are no explicit lyrics in this album or something.
It's not really, to be fair, for what you expect. I mean, did you listen to this song, guys?
Yes.
I did as much as I could stomach.
Okay, Alex?
Yeah, it's equal. Like, I didn't listen to it, or I got the gist after about 20 seconds.
Yeah. Like, it's a novelty, Run DMC style song. I'll tap out now, thanks.
They teach this song in law classes in America.
You see, I saw that as the top comment. I was like, oh, I don't understand this joke.
No, especially in entertainment law, this song is one of the paramount examples in a fair use case. I think it went all the way to the Supreme Court. So Roy Orbison's family sued Two Live Crew, saying that, they'd basically used the riff without their permission, that it was too close to the original song. Two Live Crew argued that, it wasn't, they're just sampling the bass line, and everything else is just, a parody, and they won. So apparently it greatly expanded the doctrine of fair use, and how parodies could be used for creative profit. So, it influenced a lot of Weird Al Yankovic's work going forward.
I'm going to say he must have been fist pumping the air.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Popping champagne at the Weird Al mansion, presumably.
Yeah, sampling of music was huge in the 80s. Like, absolutely huge, especially in rap. Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique, which is a fantastic album, it is incredibly heavily sampled. And then Biz Markie was sued by, what's his name, Engelbert Humperdinck? and lost. And after that, it became really hard to sample music. And basically a lot of artists started suing other artists that were using their music. This basically pushed that back just a little bit and was huge for the 90s. So Two Live Crew's version of Pretty Woman has relevance. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that it's better. No, I'm joking.
That might have been the first thing that ever caused us to have an actual physical altercation.
Allegedly, is better.
When Ben got his first car, he actually only used to listen to the Two Live Crew's greatest hits.
I only got a car so I can listen to this song in private.
What an image.
Top 5.
Top 5 time. This time round, just because I want to see the creative minds of Dee and Alex at work,
Creative?
I want to know how many, and I think you can do this fairly easy, but I just want to know what you can come up with. Can you at least come up with 5 films named after hit songs? Not counting Pretty Woman. Alex, no Beatles songs.
No Beatles songs? Oh, because I was going to say Yellow Submarine.
For some reason, Against All Odds comes straight to mind.
Yep, well, it works.
I mean, I've already mentioned Blue Velvet. That is one.
Men in Black.
No, I don't think that counts. That definitely does not count.
I love that.
Don't love it. Come on, you can do this.
I mean, a lot of James Bond films.
No, you can't. No, it's not doing it. You're breaking the version. Come on, guys.
Footloose.
Footloose.
Well, the song is from the film, isn't it?
The song is from the film Footloose, so I don't know if that will count.
Okay. So I can't have Grease.
You're just picking films in which
Brackets Lightning.
the original song for the film called it the song, and you're working.
Yeah.
with
Okay,
what about songs named after films, like Breakfast at Tiffany's?
Reversed.
God.
I thought it would be easy for you, especially you, D.
Me?
I don't know, I'm just pulling your chin.
It's a lot of dead air.
I know, I'm really struggling.
There's a lot of dead air. I'm surprised that you couldn't at least name 5.
Well, I did. I mean, there's at least 5 James Bond films.
We can't. You can't do this. To be fair, a lot of examples online of James Bond films.
Have you got a list of like top 5?
Alex, I've got a list of about 3,000.
Oh right.
American Pie.
Oh
yes, American
that's a good
Pie.
example,
Great,
Dee.
fantastic. That's a really good one, D. Well done. That's a great
Thank
one.
you.
Alex is a website which I think has just found has equated songs by artists to the same name, such as, for example, Bridge of Spies by Tapao.
Wow.
Which is not Boom by POD. There is a film called Boom, and there is a song. American Pie's very good. You got 4. Can you think of one more? And not a James Bond song.
And not James Bond.
E.T. by Katy Perry. No, it's just like that. It doesn't work.
God.
Pretty in Pink.
Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, but the song is for the film. Again,
the song is for the film,
same situation.
I'm really struggling, so I'm just throwing anything where I know there's a song. Hence the podcast.
for a podcast about songs from movies. You've let me down.
I guess, like, oh god, there will be examples of like Walk the Line is an example, isn't it?
Yeah,
like Johnny Cash one.
Stuff like that.
I was
That's really
thinking
good.
like biopics are probably a good example.
Yeah, they were a good Bohemian Rhapsody. You could have gone for all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Avatar by Dave Shell.
There's a new film about David Bowie called Moon Age Daydream, which is a song.
Nice.
Yeah, Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
There you go. Yes, I'm loving this website because this website has just found Godzilla by Kesha. Hero by those guys from Spider-Man is a film, a Chinese film.
Oh, you could also have Hero by Enrique Iglesias.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that more famous version of
a song called Hero.
Whoa.
Jumanji by Azalea Banks. The list goes on. I'm done.
But what examples are there of actual films that are named after songs?
I've lost my list because I've started going through all these terrible ones now. I'm really interested in Men in Black's on this list now. Against All Odds is actually one that's used by quite a lot, D. So I think you've kind of hit the one that seems to be most popular on a lot of other people's lists.
Well, like I say, I listen to a lot of smooth radio.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Collins is on like every other song. She's Like the Wind,
just the Tarzan soundtrack.
and anything by Phil Collins. If you put it on for 20 minutes, you're going to hear one of those.
Stand By Me is a popular one.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dazed and Confused, the Led Zeppelin song, and the Richard Linklater film. Jumping Jack Flash, films, these things like this.
Okay. So now it is time for movie or song. So this week we're deciding if the movie Pretty Woman is better than the song Oh Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison. Alex, over to you.
It's a rare occurrence for me, but
I'm interested. I'm interested what Alex thinks of this one.
I'm definitely choosing so. It's not often that I do, but in this case I am doing because, as I have already said, I'm a big Roy Orbison fan. And I only sort of like the film. I think it's fine. I think there are other films like it that, are just as good. I don't think it stands out as being like an excellent version of the film that it is either. So definitely.
Fair enough. Ben?
I was looking at my lists of movies that I have rated over my years, and apparently this is my 6th favourite Julia Roberts film. And on
that should have been your top 5, Ben.
What are Ben's 5 favourite Julia Roberts films?
Yeah.
You'll never guess number 1.
Is it Notting Hill?
Damn. I do love Notting Hill. Yeah. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I will accept that this song is better, and I can still allow... Is that the cat?
It is, yes, Lorna.
I can still allow this song to exist because that's how we work on this podcast.
Yep. I'm actually surprised. I'm also picking the song. I didn't expect it to be a clean sweep, to be honest.
This is rare that we have songs win.
Yeah, it is rare, isn't it?
On a film podcast.
And a song podcast. Come
No,
on.
it's a film podcast.
Yeah, I just think the song, the guitar riff itself is probably more iconic to me than the film, even though, as I've said before, there's so many like pop culture references to this film. The song just, it's just better. Sorry, listeners who are potential fans of Pretty Woman, who are listening for the first time.
I'm sure there is some.
Sorry, guy who wrote Under Siege 2.
He's not sorry. He made so much money off that.
Probably really did. Perpetuating the life of Steven Seagal. Is there a worse crime? Is there a worse... I don't know. It's fucking...
Was Tommy Lee Jones was in one of them, wasn't he? Was he in the first one?
Presumably.
Allegedly.
Anyway. Ding. Thank you for joining that song from that movie. Let us know on Twitter which one you think is better, the movie or the song. Alex, where should the listeners let us know which one's better?
TSFT and
no, yes, on Twitter. I messed up that question, but we're going to leave it in the edit.
There's a question mark at the end of the Twitter handle.
So you can also share this on Reddit. But Ben, what random subreddit should they share it on this week?
The To Live Crew subreddit.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so you can also help the podcast by buying our merch, leaving a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast, signing up to be one of our Patreons, or just telling your friends.
Yeah.
All the links are in the show notes. So all that's left now is to do some goodbyes. So it's goodbye from myself, goodbye, and goodbye from Alex.
Wow, that was so good, I almost peed my pants.
And goodbye from Ben.
Eat, Pray, Love is my second favourite Julia Roberts film. Allegedly.
So goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Mystic Pizza's third.
Mystic Pizza. Go on to the other two.
Erin Brockovich and Wonder.
Wonder? Is that film with Owen Wilson in it?
Yeah.
Was that good?
And it was alright.
Do you want me to go on to my actual thoughts of the film?
Yeah, go.
Yes, please, Dietrich. That's why we're all here.
All of us, really?
Well, some people.
Alex especially.
Not me.
He ain't here for me.